What's up, folks? Part 6. Let's just dive right in. Any more awkward stories like the one with Lucas? For those of you that don't understand the question, I made a video a while back called Lucas and the Red-Faced Boy, so go and watch that. It's an awkward story. And to answer the question, yes. Yes, I have a treasure trove of awkward stories. In fact, I think if a movie were ever written about my life, particularly my teenage and early 20s life, it would probably just be called Awkward. I'm not as awkward as some people are, but, you know, awkwardness seems to surround me. And when I was thinking about this question, the first story that sprung to my mind was this. I went to grade school with this girl named Megan. And, had a little crush on her or whatever, like you do in grade school. And her parents knew my parents. We used to ride the bus together because we lived pretty nearby each other. And Megan was not like any other type. She wasn't my type. I have a type with women, typically. And I typically go for, brunettes, dark hair, dark eyes, darker skin. I tend to go for more like nerdy type of girls or kind of tomboy type of girls, I guess. And Megan was none of those things. Megan was a blonde hair, blue-eyed cheerleader type of girl, very girly. And I think that the reason I don't go for that type of girl typically, I'm not saying I'm not attracted to those type of girls, but that's just when I don't seek that type of girl. Is because I think the reason for that is because I grew up around that type of girl. All my sisters, my biological sister and all my stepsisters are that type of girl. They're all blonde, blue-eyed, cheerleader, very girly, and I tend to look for girls that are outside of that. And so we went to different junior highs, so I lost track of Megan for 2 or 3 years. And the next time I saw her, I was a sophomore. It was the first day of my sophomore year in high school. And she comes walking into a class, my first class, and sits down right next to me. And she's smoking fucking hot. I was like, oh, my God, it's Megan. Oh, Jesus Christ, don't sit here. Don't sit. Please don't sit next to me. And she sits right next to me, of course. And I'm like, oh, this is so awkward. And, of course, the teacher gets up in front of the class and says, oh, you're going to be working with partners in this class quite often, so I want you to turn, to the person in the aisle across from you and introduce yourselves. And, of course, I turned to Megan, and she almost immediately recognized me. She goes, aren't you Paul? I said, yeah. Didn't we go to grade school? Yes, we did. Oh, my God, how have you been? It's been so long. Very nice. Very bubbly, very nice, very disarming type of person. Didn't look down on me because I was a little fat kid, Didn't treat me like an asshole. Was just very nice and warm and accepting of me. And, of course, I was complete. I had no idea what to say to her. Anyway, we start working together that day. The teacher started us on our first little group project, or little partner project, or whatever it is. And we're talking, and she goes, she passes me this compliment that I have no idea what to do with. She says, Paul, I just got to say something. I said, what? She said, you have the most beautiful eyelashes that I have ever seen in my entire life. I'm so jealous of your eyelashes. Now, this is the big cosmic joke, right? Because it's true, or at least I think it's true. I've heard this from women my entire life, and you probably can't see, due to my low-quality webcam and the fact that they're really blonde. But I do. I have really long, ridiculous eyelashes, and women all throughout my life have been like, oh, your eyelashes are so pretty. And I have no idea what to do with that. I don't take compliments well anyway. I'm a ruthless self-critic, so I have a hard time graciously accepting compliments. I get flustered when people compliment me overtly. And I have no idea what to do with this. And so I panic. And she's looking at me with this look of expectation, like a normal person would. She's looking at me like, aren't you going to say something? Aren't you going to say thank you? And what do I do? What do I go? Oh, thanks. Oh, yeah, I love my eyelash. I have no idea what to say. And so I just, for whatever reason, reach up with my hand like this to say something. And I'm going to, as I'm talking, I'm going to grab these eyelashes or touch them or whatever. And so I grab the eyelashes, and I'm so nervous, and I'm looking right at her, and she's got that expectant look on her face. And I have the eyelashes like this, pinched in my fingers, And all of a sudden I twitch nervously. I twitch and I pull out like a whole fucking row of eyelashes from this eye. And I'm sitting about yay far from Megan at this point. And this look of horror, that expectant look of like, I just passed you a compliment, be gracious, turns to horror, like almost immediately. She's like, and I'm holding these eyelashes up between us. And my mind is going a mile a minute. I'm just like, you got to do something. You got to salvage this. You got to say something suave, do something amazing, do something, pull your feet out of the fire, goddammit. Buck up, soldier, and do something, and I have no idea what to do. And the only thing that I could think of to do was this. I went, I blow a puff of air at these eyelashes and let them sprinkle to the ground like dandelion fluff. And she never once said another nice thing to me. There was never any interaction between us for the rest of that year that wasn't in furtherance of whatever it was we were doing in class. Didn't smile at me, didn't want to. Obvious she was freaked out by me, and I have no qualms with that. I would have been the same, I think, in her position. But the reason that one stands out to me is because most awkward situations are either really deeply personal and nobody else really notices them, and they're over rather quickly, and then you can kind of move on, and then you're just left with that, psychic scar, that psychiatric scar. This one, I was reminded every day of it in her demeanor towards me. For the rest of the fucking year, we sat across from each other in this fucking class and had to partner work. And every time we interacted, I was reminded that she thought I was a fucking freak. So, that's just one. That's one out of my treasure trove. What do you think of free market economics? What a terrible question to come, just by the luck of the draw, to be the next one on the list. This one really does deserve to be kind of at the end. Because I have no idea how to talk about something like this and then to go back being jovial. Haha, now let me make you laugh. Now I've depressed you, now let me make you laugh. What do you think of free market economics? I'm going to roll with it. I should say in full disclosure here that I am not an economist. I'm not even an amateur economist. I'm not even a guy with no economic background who has some little passing interest in economics. I don't follow it. But I do believe that economics are something that you can apply some measure of common sense to. It's not like you're excluded from talking about it. I think common sense is applicable. And what you're saying when you say free market economy, you're saying an economy, a market that's free from government intervention, free from excessive regulation. Just allow people to do whatever they want in the economy, laissez-faire capitalism, just let people make money hand over fist, and everything will work out for the better. And that's my first problem with people who subscribe to the free market cult, is that they talk about the market as if it's some external entity. It's some non-human thing with its own desires and needs and wants, its own mind, and we just have to kind of interact with it, but we can't control it. And I'm sorry, I reject that principle outright. It's magical thinking. It's magical thinking is exactly what it is. You've got like Ronald Reagan giving his famous stump speech about, you gotta be willing to believe in the magic of the marketplace. And I'm sorry, Ronnie and everyone else, but I don't fucking believe in magic. I've never experienced magic. I've never seen magic. I believe in misdirection. I believe in obfuscation. I believe in trickery. I believe in illusion, but I do not believe in magic. There's almost a parallel between the way Christians talk about Yahweh, and free market cultists talk about the market. And I reject that outright. I don't believe in magic. I don't believe that the market is this ethereal entity. I believe that the market is made up of people, and I think that the evidence bears that out. Everybody on this planet is a participant in the global economy, whether they want to be or not. Even if you're at the lowest rung, you're a consumer. And if you're at the highest rung, you're in a very privileged position when it comes to your economic status. You're the top 0.1% of global wage earners. You're people that own and operate the companies that drive the ebbs and flows of the global economy. And so if we've driven the nail into the coffin that the free market is some ethereal entity, if we're discarding that idea, then what's left? What are you asking me to do? What is this free market thing you're asking me to do? You're asking me to trust the top 0.1% of wage earners and the politicians that they outright purchase with stewardship of the economy. You're asking me to trust them to run the economy in such a way that not only benefits them, but benefits me and everyone else besides. And I'm sorry, these people have never given me any reason to trust them. And if you want to fact check me on that, just use a little Google foo. Go and look up white-collar corporate crime statistics, from 1980 on. Look at the last 2 or 3 decades and look at these statistics. It'll blow your mind. The first time I did it, it blew my mind because I had no idea. These people, these companies that you'll see are not these little fly-by-night companies, these little companies that came and went because, they broke the law. These are every major names. Places that you probably patronize once a day or once a week or once a month. Certainly places that you drive by on your way to work. These are big names. And what you see is not just 1 or 2 little incidents of law breaking. Oh yeah, one of the senior accountants got greedy and embezzled some money and, one bad apple in the company, or one CEO instituted a policy that was in direct contravention of international, financial law. And, we were fined for it. These names show up over and over and over and over again for the same shit: embezzlement, bribery of public officials, outright theft, tax evasion, misstatement of profits. And they do it again and again and again and again and pay billions of dollars cumulatively. That's a terrible word. Cumulatively. Billions of fucking dollars in fines. And they do it again and again and again. This is not just an isolated incident or two. This is a pattern. This is a part of the way they do business. Part of doing business in America is breaking the law over and over and over again and getting caught over and over and over again. And you're asking me to trust these people with stewardship of the economy. I have this idea that a lot of people in this country think about, Wall Street. And they think about it like this. They're like, oh, them Wall Street types. They do what they do. They make their money. They trade their stocks or whatever it is. They win some, they lose some. And I'm not interested in doing that. I'm a simple person. I just want to live my little life, have my little white picket fence and my dogs and my 2 kids and my wife, and just live a nice, simple life. And I'm sorry, you're at this point in history, you can no longer afford to live in blissful ignorance of the facts. Okay? You can no longer afford to be wrong about this. The decisions that these people make, the laws that these people break, the money that these people extract from the global economy illegally, and in some cases legally, because of deregulation. Everything that they do affects every aspect of your life. You are wholly and completely dependent on the economy being in some measure of health. I don't think most people in this country specifically realize how close we were in 2008 to just Armageddon. They think, oh, it's another economic downturn. It's another housing bubble popped and, stocks took a slump. This was not just some passing phase. We were literally, as a species in 2008, standing with 1 foot hanging over the yawning void and another foot on a banana peel. We were a cunt hair from global economic meltdown, from hitting the reset button on the global economy, which would end life as we know it. It would end our way of life as we know it. It would be the apocalypse. We were that fucking close due to the bad decisions that these people made, and the culture of deregulation, and the culture of law breaking, and the culture of circumventing the law via purchasing politicians that these people have made for themselves over the last few decades in this country. And you're asking me to let these dogs completely off the chain and just free them and let them take care of it. And I can't think of anything stupider than that. I cannot think of anything worse than that. Any worse idea than that. I was thinking of analogies before I sat down to make this video. And the one that kept popping into my head with regards to this free market economics, was allowing the fox to guard the hen house. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. You know, you don't want the fox guarding the hen house because foxes kill chickens. It's a stupid idea. But after I thought about it for a minute or two, that analogy doesn't work. It doesn't work because you can't really compare these people to foxes. You see, a fox doesn't kill chickens out of malice. A fox doesn't kill chickens out of some unquenchable desire to accumulate more chicken corpses. A fox doesn't kill chickens so that he can go to the country club, the little fox country club, and brag to his foxy friends about how many chickens he killed. A fox kills chickens in furtherance of its own survival. That's why a fox kills a chicken. A fox kills a chicken because a fox has to kill a chicken to fill its belly with meat to survive. These people do not do what they do. They don't break the law over and over and over again. They don't circumvent the law through purchasing of politicians. They don't make decisions that bring the economy to the brink of fucking collapse and then turn to America and ask for trillions of dollars to bail their failed companies out and suffer absolutely no consequences. They don't do that in furtherance of their own survival. They do it because they're addicted to accumulations. These people are addicts. They're addicted to more. The need for more. A better analogy would be hiring a crackhead to guard the evidence locker at a big fucking police station, you know, the day after a giant multi-billion-dollar crack bust. That's closer to what you're asking me to do if you're asking me to accept the principles of free market economics. You're asking me to hire a crackhead, a person with a rap sheet as long as my arm, with a history of recidivistic crack use, to be the sole person responsible for guarding an evidence locker filled to the brim with crack. Like, hey, crackhead, we hired you and we would like you to guard this crack. Don't smoke it. Don't you smoke it. Don't fill your pockets with it and go sell it and buy more of it. Don't use that crack. Just guard it. We trust you. Oh, yes, sir, officer. I won't smoke the crack. That's what you're asking me to do. And my answer is no. No, thank you. Not interested. You know, it's such an indictment of our culture to me that there are people in my position. I don't make a lot of money, and there are people below my position that make even less money than me that are in worse economic condition than I am. That there are people that we're not of one voice on this. That people we can't even agree on this. We can't even say no. No, you're not allowed to just run rampant with the economy because I realize at the very most basic level that the things that you do affect my life. You're not allowed to just systematically remove that ever thinner wall of protection between your shitty, greedy decisions and my life. You're not allowed to deregulate the economy. You're not allowed to purchase politicians wholesale. You're not allowed. No. We're not of one voice on that. We can't even agree on that. There are people in my position and below my position economically that just go to bat for these people. They have been convinced through some combination of stupidity and self-delusion that they ought to go to bat for the top 0.1% of wage earners in this country, that they really need to be concerned with the economic standing of these people, really need to be concerned with these people's ability to continue to extract trillions of dollars from the global economy. And I can't even fathom it. It's such a huge indictment of our culture to me that those people exist. That we can't even agree on that. It seems so basic to me. It's so fundamental to me. Oh, this is an how do you move on from that? I don't know. You just do. I combined three questions together. Because as I was thinking about it, I went through and read, and I was like, you know, these are all kind of weirdly tied together. So I'm going to answer them all in one big bonanza of storytelling. The three questions are these. Paul, what's with the pig hat? What's the best live show you've ever seen? And Paul, have you ever had a brush with fame? And in a weird sort of twisted Paul way, these are all kind of related. So I used to live across the street from these guys that were in a band. And, you know, this was in my adult life. I owned my own place, and I had a condo, and they lived in a condo across the street. And these two guys were in a band together, and I became really good friends with these guys and started going to their shows, really liked their music. They played, you know, some permutation of metal. I don't pretend to know. I mean, metal is one of those things that you can't just say metal anymore and people understand what the fuck you're talking about, because there's 18,000 different subgenres of metal. I don't know what kind of metal they played, but it was metal, and I liked it. It was hard, aggressive music and kind of technical. They were really good musicians, and I liked their stuff. So I started going to their shows. And then they started traveling and playing gigs kind of out of town. And they were playing this one gig in a little town on the Central California coast called San Luis Obispo. And they asked me if I would like to come and hang out with them and help them unload shit, you know, kind of a roadie type of thing. And I said, oh, fuck yeah, that sounds fun. So they were playing this gig at a little bar called the Slow Brew. And it's kind of a funny little name. It's SLO Brew, the SLO Brew, San Luis Obispo. Get it? See what they did there? And so we got there really early, and so we decided we were going to walk around, you know, downtown San Luis a little bit. And I decided I needed a hat. I didn't have a hat. I'd lost a hat or something, and I needed to buy a new hat. And I saw this little skate shop. And so I walked into the skate shop, and the first hat that I saw was this hat. It was sitting on a mannequin. And I'm not a skater. I had no idea up until a couple of years ago what this logo even was. I just thought it was a funny little hat, you know, and I was like, oh, I like the pig. I pulled it off the mannequin, and it's a you know, fitted cap, so there was a possibility it wasn't going to be able to be squeezed over my giant Irish melon. But in fact, it fit. It fit perfectly. And I bought it, and I've had it ever since. It's been probably 9 years, almost 10 years since I bought this hat, and it is falling into complete disrepair. It's nasty. It's ripped in places. The bill is all fucked up, but this is the only hat that I own, and I wear it fucking all the time. Like, everywhere I go, I wear this hat. I love this fucking hat. A couple of years ago, for my birthday, my wife told me, you know, for your birthday this year, I want you to get a new hat. Like, go find a hat and buy it, and that'll be my present. Because your hat is disgusting. And so I thought, yeah, I got to find out what this is. And so I actually found out via one of my YouTube videos. People are always asking, what's with the pig hat? What's the deal? And somebody answered for me, and I had no idea that it's a wheel company. They make wheels for skateboards, pig wheels. And so I went looking for another pig wheels hat. And I was like, oh, I'll take one. I just want a solid colored hat with a solid colored logo on it. That's all I want. And they're nowhere to be found. And it's so depressing to me, because eventually this hat's just going to fall apart, and I'm not going to have a hat anymore. But that's where the hat came from. It came from this very specific trip, and I just bought it on a whim, and I've had it ever since, and I love it to death. So anyway, one of the reasons that these guys that I was in San Luis Obispo with were excited was that they were there. They were going to open for a band called Dreyfus. And they were all huge fanboys of this band. This was an unsigned kind of local band that they had seen several times before. And they played some of their music for me on the way up there, and I was like, yeah, you know, it's good, but it's not, I don't get it. I don't get where you guys, because I mean, they were just gushing over this band. Like they were the most amazing thing in the world. Dreyfus, like Richard Dreyfuss's last name. That's how they spelled their name. They were called Dreyfus. And so they were all hyped up because they were gonna play their set, and then they were gonna get to watch Dreyfus. Now, I've been to some pretty fucking awesome concerts in my time. I've seen Nine Inch Nails during the Fragile tour. I've seen, I got to see Tool during the Lateralis tour. I've seen lots of really great bands that are just known for their performance. So the guys that I was with played their opening gig. They were good. They were fine. I helped them tear down their equipment and pack it up. And then I sat down to watch Dreyfus, or crowded up towards the stage. By the time it was time for them to go on, the place was fucking packed. I mean, people just fucking thronged into this place. They were turning people away because they were over capacity. And I didn't get it. I was watching these guys set up, and they're setting up their own shit, and they're these nerdy, normal-looking dudes. and they're setting up their thing. They had some rudimentary like lighting effects, little strobes and shit that they had set up, and one of the guys was running all that through a little board they had. And they just set up their shit, normal nerdy looking guys. And I'll never forget when their show started. The lead singer walked up to the mic and said, "Hi everybody, we're Dreyfus, and this is what it sounds like when doves cry." Boom! And they launched right into a song. And at first I thought it was going to be a cover of Prince's song, When Doves Cry, but it wasn't. It was. I have no idea why he opened the show with that, but it just jammed in my memory. Because as soon as he said that, the band launched into what was probably the most technical metal music that I've ever heard, and the most lively, amazing showmanship that I've ever seen. These guys were fucking rock stars in every sense of the word, and I was right up on the stage, and by the time they launched into their second song, I was squealing, like a groupie chick that just got a backstage pass. I was fucking enraptured, and they played like a 45-minute set that was, to this day, the most amazing music, the most amazing live musical performance that I've ever personally witnessed. And you know that I'm not shitting you here, because I'm putting them up against fucking Nine Inch Nails and fucking Tool. Both bands, I mean, those bands are known for their amazing stage shows. And these guys, with a couple of little strobes and just sheer determination, talent, will, and energy, outshone those fucking rock stars. You know what I mean? They played a show that to this day has not been, and I don't know if it ever will be. And a month after that show, they broke up. They no longer play music. I have a CD of theirs somewhere. You can't find it anywhere. And it's a goddamn shame. These guys should be signed. The fact that there are shitty people, like Chris Brown, signed, making millions of dollars, and these guys were a garage band that played together for a couple of years, is a shame. But that's the best live show I've ever seen. And ever had a brush with fame. See, this one ties in the same way. These guys, the same guys from the previous story, my friends from across the street, called me one day all flipping out excited because they were invited to play at the Whiskey A Go-Go, which is a pretty prestigious venue in Hollywood, California. It's a place where the Doors got their big break. I mean, a lot of really famous, it's a really iconic place if you're a music lover to visit in Hollywood. And so they're all stoked. They'd sent a tape in and gotten a letter back from the promotional guy saying, "Yeah, we'd love to have you guys come down and play." So they're like, "Oh, dude, you got to come with us. We're going to play the Whiskey." And I was stoked for them, so I said, "Sure." So we all go down to Hollywood, show up at the Whiskey A Go-Go. They're all starstruck. I'm starstruck. I'm all swept up in it, too. We go in, really early on the day that they're supposed to play, to find out, what we do, when do we go on, when do we come. And this guy drops the bomb on us. It turns out that it's kind of a racket to play at the Whiskey A Go-Go for an unsigned band, because you are responsible for selling tickets to your own show. I think it was like $250 worth of tickets you had to sell. Otherwise, your slot was filled with somebody else. So it's kind of an asshole thing to do the day of the fucking show. He hands us a bunch of tickets and says, $250 worth of tickets or you don't go on. And so we're panicking. We're like walking up and down the street like, we don't know anybody in fucking LA, How do we sell that? So we break up the tickets. We're walking up and down fucking Hollywood Boulevard trying. Nobody's buying. I think it was pitiful. Like in 3 or 4 hours of trying, we sold like 3 or 4 fucking tickets to this thing. And they're all fucking disheartened. They're like, "We're not going to be able to fucking do it. This sucks. What a fucking letdown." And so I made an executive decision. I went over. I didn't have the fucking money, but I did it anyway. Because I did not want to see these guys come all the way to LA and almost play this venue and not get to do it. And I overdrew my fucking account and took out, I think it was like $200 that they needed after the 2 or 3 or 4 tickets that they'd sold. And I just gave it to them. And I said, "Here. Now we don't have to sell them. They're sold. I bought them all." And so we just passed them out for free. So we spent the last hour or so passing them out for free. They were ecstatic. They got to play their show. It was really cool. And they wanted to hang out and get drunk afterwards. So we're all drinking at the Whiskey, having a fucking fantastic time. And I decide that I'm going to step outside to the front of the Whiskey A Go-Go and have a cigarette. And here's where the brush with fame came in. I'm standing out there smoking a cigarette, and I'm looking across, Hollywood Boulevard. And I see these people, this entourage of people, like 20 people walking. And I'm looking, and at the center of this mass of people is this really tall, large, loud, blonde woman. And so I'm sitting there and I'm smoking and I'm watching these people, and they go up a little bit and they cross the street, and they're going to cross in front of the Whiskey A Go-Go. As they're crossing the street, I finally realize who this is. It's Anna Nicole Smith, right? I'm not a fan of Anna Nicole Smith's, but it was weird. It was, for me, it was just like, holy shit, fucking Anna Nicole Smith is just going to walk by me. And so I'm drunk and kind of like staring it down, because her entourage is the weirdest collection of fucks you've ever seen. I mean, there was I think it's a dwarf is the preferred nomenclature. No, there was a little person who I identified as, I believe it was Bridget the Midget of porn fame. She's probably the most well-known little person porn actress, was with Anna Nicole. And it's just these weird fucking people surrounding her. And so I'm gawping at these people. I'm just like, and they walk by. And I'm just like, fucking Anna Nicole Smith. Who'd have fucking thunk it? Anna Nicole Smith. That's some shit. They walk by, and I'm continuing to stare. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Anna Nicole stops. And they've gone about 15, 20 feet down the road from me. She stops, and she turns around. And she goes, hey, you faggot. You loser, fucking faggot. And I'm just sitting there, and I chuckled because I thought she was talking to somebody in her entourage. I'm like, and Nicole called somebody a faggot. That's funny. And she goes, no, you, motherfucker, you faggot, you right there. And she points at me, and I'm like, oh, fuck. She's accosting me. And I was like, what? She goes, what the fuck are you looking at, asshole? And I was like, Anna Nicole Smith? I don't know. What? So when you said faggot, you meant me? She's like, yeah, I fucking meant you fucking loser. And I'll never forget this. She did the fucking, I don't know, was it Wayne's World that started this shit? She goes, you fucking loser. And all her entourage laughs, And she goes on strolling down the street. And I'm left with like, what a fucked up situation this is. You know what I mean? Like, I just got called a loser by Anna Nicole Smith and a midget. And an entourage of weird hangers-on. You know what I mean? For nothing. So that was probably the weirdest brush with fame. Interestingly enough, later that night, after the next, band played their set and we were all drunk, we decided we wanted to get something to eat. We walked right down the street, right near the Whiskey A Go-Go, and I forget the name of it, but there's a pizza place. Pretty famous little joint. And we go in there and we sit down and we continue to drink, and I go get in line to order our pizzas. You got to wait, up and order at the counter. And as I'm waiting there, these two guys walk in and brush by me. I'm fat, so I'm taking up a lot of space in the line, and there's one of those metal rails behind me, and so they can't just like walk by me like I'm a normal person. I'm fat, so I'm taking up half the fucking line or more. So they have to go, excuse me, pardon me, kind of scooch by me uncomfortably, and I'm like, ooh. Anyway, we ate our pizza and continued to get drunk, and I'm belligerent drunk at this point. And I asked the waitress when she brings our check, I'm like, the question she probably gets 50 times a day from every drunk idiot that eats at that place. So you ever get any, like, famous people? Did the famous people come here to eat pizza? And she kind of laughs. And everybody's like, dude, that's fucking, of course they do. And she's like, no, it's not why I'm laughing. She said, do you guys not see who was sitting like one table over from you guys just now? The people sitting in one table over from us were the guys that brushed by me. Excuse me, sorry, pardon me, brushed by my fat ass on their way to their table. And they'd sat down right at the table next to us. And I think this is just a great thing it like highlights how we just don't look at each other in the society. We don't want to know people. We don't want to be involved in whatever you're doing. We've got our own thing going on. We've got the blinders going. She goes, did you not see who was sitting at that table right there? I said, no, who's sitting at the table? She goes, you guys were sitting like 5 feet from Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man. And we all start laughing. I'm like, what the fuck ever? She goes, no, seriously. She's like, they come here all the time. So I just think it's funny that you asked me the question that I always get asked, and you guys literally were 5 feet away from, like, the 2 biggest stars in Hollywood. So that was a literal brush with fame, because both of them had to brush by my, big fat ass on their way to their table that night. But, yeah. Paul, what are the most emotional moments you've seen in a movie, anime, TV series? It takes... I don't get emotional at movies all that often, interestingly enough. It takes a movie that's just amazing. And I'm gonna say movie here, because I'm sorry, I'm not an anime fan. I don't watch it. And TV, I don't watch TV either. I go out of my way to not watch TV. So movies are really the only endpoint I have here. And I'm trying to think of the few times that I've cried at a movie. I cried at Forrest Gump when I saw it in theaters. I think I was 12 when it came out, or 11. I cried at that part where, and it gets me misty every time I watch that movie, where Forrest figures out that he's the spoiler alert if you've never seen Forrest, whatever. He finds out that he's the father of Jenny's kid. And you can see his heart break. He goes, because Forrest is a retarded guy. He's mentally challenged. He goes, the realization sinks in, and he goes, is he smart, or is he? And he breaks. I fucking lost it. You know what I mean? That was so sad to me, that he was so concerned. He didn't want this kid to grow up. I'm getting all fucking emotional just thinking about it. He didn't want this kid to grow up with the handicap that he had. So that got me. But most recently, and probably the worst, the movie that's gotten me the worst, was a documentary that I watched probably 2 or 3 months ago on Netflix called Dear Zachary. And I believe I haven't watched it. I probably won't ever watch it again, to be honest with you. But I believe it's streamable on Netflix, and I cannot recommend this documentary highly enough. I mean, if you are at all interested in documentary film, I cannot recommend this film highly enough. I'm not going to spoil the plot of it, because I really think that you need to experience this movie for yourself. But just suffice it to say, I'll give you a quick overview of the opening premise of the movie. It's about this guy who was murdered. And this guy was murdered and found dead in a park. And his friend decides to make a documentary about him, because at the time that he was murdered, his girlfriend was pregnant with their son, Zachary. And he wanted to make a documentary about this guy's life so that his son would have some measure of an idea what an amazing person his father was. And that's the premise of the movie. Of course, the movie goes in a completely different direction. By the end of this movie, when the credits rolled, I broke down into probably the hardest crying fit I've ever had in my entire life. I was so angry and so deeply saddened by the way that all of that it all turned out, and so just drained of all ability to control myself. I sobbed for like 30 minutes after that movie. It was by far the most emotionally affecting piece of art, literature, movies, plays, music that I've ever experienced in my life. I sobbed for half a fucking hour uncontrollably, and then broke down several times later in the day after thinking about it. It's an unbelievable film, and I think everybody should see it. So go get it on Netflix. Paul, do you ever rewatch your older stuff on YouTube to see if you've changed your opinions over time? I don't know why I picked this question. I don't know if I've really got a long answer. I try not to. Every once in a while I go back. My early videos make me cringe in horror when I see how fucking uncomfortable I was in front of the camera. They make me I never want to watch it again. And I don't like the fact that I spent, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, but I don't like the fact that I spent so much time on what ultimately was a bankrupt pursuit in going after religion exclusively. I don't like the fact that it took me so long to figure out that that's just one avenue of many that I could have taken my channel down. I don't like my hyper focus on religion. It's not because I feel bad for saying these things. I stand behind the things I said about religion in all my videos. I just wish that I hadn't wasted so much time beating my head against a brick wall. You know what I mean? I wish that I'd branched out earlier and focused on other things that I care about. And there might be a legitimate argument that what I do now when I talk about politics and, economic stratification and corporate greed and all this other shit, that I'm just beating my head against another brick wall, and that might be true. But I wish I had branched out earlier, so I try not to watch my old videos. I do every once in a while. I'm currently on a diet, and I know that you, like me, have been on frequent diets. I don't really have a specific question, but if you could talk at length about the experience of a fat fuck who tries to better himself and fails, that would be neat. I believe this was a TJ question, and TJ's on a diet, and from what I understand, he's doing pretty good. He's lost a significant amount of weight, so good on you, TJ. I don't even like talking about weight loss anymore. I've reached a point where I've been the little boy who cries wolf with my friends and family when I tell them, hey guys, I'm eating better and exercising. I've lost 40 pounds. And then the next time they see me, I'm fatter than I've ever fucking been. You can go back, speaking of the previous question, you can go back and look at some of my old videos and watch probably 4 or 5 failed diets. You can watch me balloon to 320 pounds, and then down to 160 or 260 pounds, and then back up to 300, and then back down to 280. You can just see it. Right now, I've been dieting, and it's a vicious cycle, and I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to this type of shit. Here's how it always goes down for me. When I first start a diet, or anything that requires changing a habit of mine, like quitting smoking, for example, I'm gung-ho, and I do so fucking good right out the gate. I'm so strict with myself, and I adhere directly to whatever plan it is that I've made myself. I don't deviate. I fucking exercise. I work hard. I don't fucking eat. I don't overeat. I keep myself at a calorie deficit, and I lose tons of weight. It just falls off of me. And I'm at a point now where I've lost, in the last 3 months, I've lost 40 pounds or something, which is relatively significant amount of weight. But here's what happens, and this has just recently started happening to me, which makes your question all the more a barb in my fucking side, What happens is I start doing good, I watch the pounds fall off of me, and I start talking myself out of succeeding. I say, you're doing so good, you know what, you can pig out today. You just go get a pizza and eat the whole fucking pizza. Because you're not going to go off your diet, you're just going to fucking have a day where you can eat whatever you want, and then tomorrow we're right back on it. And I'll do it. I'll go out and get a bunch of food and pig out and eat like a fucking asshole all day. And typically I'm really good. I get right back on the horse the next day. I'm fine. I don't gain weight. I continue to lose weight. But the problem is that once I've done that once, I've now kicked the door open. You know what I mean? That door that was firmly shut when I started that diet is now open a crack. And a couple of weeks down the line, I'm like, I'm going to get another pizza. And then a week after that, I've been eating and no consequences. And before I know it, and it literally happens so fast that I don't even recognize it happening. Before I know it, I'm eating worse than I've ever eaten in my life. I weigh more than I've ever weighed in my entire life. And I've once again failed to have even a modicum of self-control. It's the most depressing fucking thing in the world. And you lose all hope. I have no hope. I went into this diet with absolutely no hope that it was actually going to work. And that's no way to go into this. In order to change your life, change your lifestyle, you've got to be positive on some level. And I've wrung all of the positivity out of this type of thing that I can. I'm no longer positive about my prospects of losing weight. I've lost weight. I continue to lose weight, but I've also started to fuck up. I've also been eating a little worse this week than I was last week, and I can just see it happening again. And it's almost like I'm outside myself, powerless to stop this impending disaster, When you fail at something, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but just as a rule, you fail. And maybe I set myself up to fail. It becomes an open wound on you. You know what I mean? It's just something I don't even want to talk about with people anymore. I don't even want to talk about my weight. And while I'm reasonably comfortable as a fat guy, I genuinely believe that there's no such thing as a fat guy that doesn't want to be in better shape. Maybe there are a few people, exceptions to the rule out there that really love, not sleeping well and not being able to exert themselves and having, big fucking rolls on their sides and looking like a fucking slob. Maybe there are people that like that, but there's no fat person that's like, oh, I'm comfortable with my size. And that's something that I hear pushed on people now. There's this whole kind of movement, especially amongst women. I haven't really noticed it amongst men very much. But women are like, you're big and beautiful, girl. No, you're a fat fucking slob. Like, how is telling these people that they're not fat or that they're not, you know what I mean? How is telling these people that they're okay at the weight that they're at helping them? You know what I mean? I don't understand it. And it's tough. I don't know. I wish you the best of luck, TJ, if this was indeed you. I can't remember, but I think it was you. But I'm right there with you. When you fail, in fact, send me a PM when you fail, and I'll fail with you. We can fail together. That'll be great. You can do a blog TV. I'll buy a bunch of Ben & Jerry's and a bunch of tacos, and we'll just stuff our faces on blog TV and be abject failures together. Now, I hope you don't fail, but if you're anything like me, you're probably already failing. Sorry. Not trying to be mean, just... I hate this fucking question. Paul, are you a brony? And I'm going to read the whole thing because you got to hear this. Just listen. Paul, are you a brony? Bronies are a community of people, generally adult men, who watch the children's show My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. They don't watch it to be funny. They legitimately like the show. If you're not a brony yet or haven't heard, and he spelled herd, H-E-R-D, like a herd of ponies, you see? Of the show. If you haven't heard of the show, then I suggest you watch it with an open mind. The main, M-A-N-E, like a mane on a pony. So good. The main cast of the show is filled with great characters, and it generally has a good plot. This is a question that I would have gladly skipped over. I mean, this really does personify bad question in my mind, because I had no idea going into this what a brony was, or that this... I know My Little Pony from the 80s, when I used to have to share the TV with my sister on Saturday morning during cartoons, and I would get to watch awesome shit like Inspector Gadget and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but then she got a turn, and she would watch Rainbow Bright and Jim and My Little Pony, just unwatchable shit, and I would sit there going, fucking when is it over? I'm gonna fucking miss Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers for this bullshit fucking pony. So really, when I saw the name My Little Pony, that's instantly the feeling that came over me, was like, fucking why do we have to watch stupid shit? Fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is on, And to think that there's a community of men out there that are actively watching My Little Pony is just beyond me. But I got this question so many times. I mean, there were probably 50 people that asked, are you a brony? You watch My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic? And so I was intrigued enough to go and watch an episode. I tracked down an episode, and I'll tell you what I remember about it, because it was a while ago that I watched this episode in furtherance of answering this question. I watched an episode where there were a bunch of fucking ponies prancing around, and one of them had wings, and he or she, I don't know which, because they all sound like girls, was trying to perfect a maneuver where he would like break the pony sound barrier. He would fly so fast and like break the sound barrier. And some other shit happened, and there was a contest, and it didn't look like he or she was going to win. And there was another pony that had wings, but that wasn't supposed to have wings, that got wings through magic, and that was winning the competition. And then it turns out that the pony that you were rooting for at the beginning wins. And I can say, unfortunately, I'm sorry, bronies. After watching that episode, I don't see any reason to watch another one. I'm not a brony. I'm sorry. I don't see what you... I mean, look, I'll give you this. My limited exposure to modern children's cartoons is this. When I try and watch cartoons that kids are into now, I can't follow them because they're so fucking frantic and poorly written and shitty. It's just like, like there's no end point. You know what I mean? And this show was better made than most. I actually was able to follow, and you can tell, retain a little bit of the plot, which I could watch most other kids' shows and probably not tell you a fucking thing about anything that happened. So I give you that. The quality is a little better. The writing was a little better and a little more memorable than it is on another show, but it's still it's a fucking cartoon about little ponies. Sorry, guys. Paul, what is your favorite commercial? God, two bad fucking questions in a row. I put this question up to highlight what a bad question is. I hate the fact that there are people out there that have favorite fucking commercials. I said before in one of my answers here that I don't watch TV, and I don't. I literally, if I do watch TV, it's something that I've DVR recorded so that I can fast forward through commercials. And one of the main reasons I don't watch TV is because I refuse to subject myself to the condescension and like overt, obvious psychological manipulation of fucking companies that are advertising to me that I want nothing to do with their fucking products. I hate the fact that commercials exist. I do everything in my power to avoid them. I fucking love the guy that invented AdBlock Plus for Firefox and Chrome or whatever. I haven't seen a fucking ad on the internet in I don't know how long. I don't see stupid little advertisements in front of YouTube videos. I don't have to wait 20 minutes to get into somebody's blog TV to view an ad. I don't see big, giant, gaudy banners. I don't get pop-ups with bullshit that I don't want. I go out of my way to avoid ads. And it's kind of funny. This Monday night of this week, I went over to my mom and stepdad's house to watch the football game. My brother-in-law was there, and he brought the kids over. So I was going to go and hang out, watch the football game, eat some barbecue, play with the kids, whatever. And I was exposed to more commercials on Monday night than I had been in probably the 6 or 8 months prior to that, because we were watching the football game live, which is not something I usually ever do. And I was just blown away by how fucking stupid these commercials have gotten. Every commercial is nonsensical, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason why every commercial is like 30 seconds of like a walrus wearing, diving goggles and a skirt, clapping his fins for 30 seconds, while a penguin, an animatronic penguin does the moonwalk behind him, and then it's like, Acura. You know what I mean? And there's a reason behind this, and this is why I hate fucking commercials. There's a psychological reason for that. Somebody figured out, with the help of some psychiatrist who did a great service to his profession, by instead of like helping to figure out and help people with mental deficiencies and mental illnesses, using his schooling to help people that suffer from mental problems, he instead decided he was going to go to work for a fucking corporation and teach them how to better manipulate stupid people. So somebody found out that when you make a commercial completely nonsensical and don't even talk about your product until the very fucking end, that people are more likely to associate with that product. So when they see it in stores, they don't just see a bag of chips, fucking bag of chips I don't want. They see a walrus in a tutu with the penguin going, I want those chips. And everybody does it. Every fucking commercial I saw had nothing to do with the product. There was a time, and it was before I was alive, certainly, but there was a time in this country where advertisement was like presenting your, this is the new, Papermate profile pen. It's got an exceptionally long-lasting cartridge, and we guarantee no mechanical failures. People would just tell you about their product, and if you needed one, then you might remember that advertisement and go check into it and maybe buy their product. That's what advertising used to be. Now advertising is just pandering. It's a race to the fucking bottom. It's pandering to the lowest common denominator of humanity. People who are not only unaware that they're being psychologically manipulated, but just proud of it. They're proud of the fact. They have favorite fucking commercials. If you have a favorite fucking commercial, you know what? Never mind. Good on you. I'm glad. Watch it. That's fine. But I just can't imagine. I can't imagine how fucked up and degraded we are as a people that's what passes for entertainment these days is fucking commercials. There are people talking about commercials. It's unreal to me. No, I don't have a favorite commercial. I'm sorry. I do remember one from when I was a kid. There was a camera company called Minolta, and they would, and like when I was a kid, I used to love the guy's voice. He would say, "From the mines of Minolta," and I liked that as a kid. So maybe those old '80s Minolta commercials, because when I was a kid, I liked his voice a whole lot. Let's see here. How did I lose where I was? What is your MBTI, your Myers-Briggs type indicator, personality type, if you know it? I don't know how much stock I place in these, but I do know mine. I actually went back and took another test. And it tends to shift. Sometimes I'll take these tests and it'll be one thing, but I'm always kind of within the same zone. The Myers-Briggs type indicator is a personality test, and it kind of almost feels a little horoscopy to me. You know, like it's very general, so people go, "Oh yeah, that's me. That's me to a T." But there's probably some good science behind it. And I take one, it's not the official one, it's one that I found on the internet, so it's probably not all that accurate, but I always end up in this zone. Let's see, ESFP. And I don't even remember what that stands for, to be honest with you. But it's the performer. And I'll read a little bit about it. And it does fit me pretty well. Where's the party? ESFPs love people, excitement, telling stories, having fun. Spontaneous, impulsive nature of this type is almost always entertaining. And ESFPs love to entertain on stage, at work, and or at home. Social gatherings are an energy boost to these people. SPs sometimes ESFPs sometimes think. Oh wait, SPs. Sorry. Sometimes think and talk in a more of a spider web approach. Several of my ESFP friends jump from thought to thought in mid-sentence, touching here or there in a manner that's almost incoherent sometimes to the listener, but will eventually cover the waterfront by skipping on impulse from one piece of information to another. It's quite fascinating. ESFPs are attracted to new ideas, blah, 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 blah. They love to talk about people. Some of the most colorful storytellers are ESFPs. They're down-to-earth, often homespun wit, reflects a mischievous benevolence. That seems to kind of nail me. I like this last part, too. Almost every ESFP loves to talk. Some can be identified by the 20-minute conversation required to ask or answer a simple factual question. That kind of nails me, and not in a non-specific way. So there must be a little something to this. I'm kind of interested in these things, but I take them with a grain of salt. But I got to be honest, when I took this one and read that, I was like, that's pretty it's pretty close. Let's see. Paul, can you what? Oh, that's the one I did before. Have you ever known a pathological liar? Yes. Yes, I have. And it's a fascinating thing. Pathological lying is fascinating to me. Now, I'm not saying, you can tell from the stories that I've told that I've spent a lot of time lying. But pathological lying is like people that are just out of control. They cannot help but lie about every aspect of their lives. And I'll tell you about the guy that I knew that was a pathological liar. In high school, I was friends with this guy named Mike, and he and I were in this little clique of friends and drama. We would play Magic the Gathering together, and at first they really didn't like me because I wasn't like them. They were very kind of introverted. Mike was a very goth type of guy, kind of trench coat mafia type of guy, wore like hats and coats, and like every once in a while would walk with a cane because he had mangled his leg in an accident when he was a kid, and it would flare up and he'd have to have a cane to walk with. And he was very disdainful of other people. But I wanted to play Magic cards with somebody. So I made friends with them, and eventually they really liked me, and we became really close friends. Mike was, like me, a storyteller. And while I will freely admit, and have in the past, that there is embellishment that goes into my stories, I think telling a story is walking in the gray area between dry recitation of fact, almost like you're testifying at a trial or something, just the facts, and a complete bullshit story. And if you're a good storyteller, you know how to effortlessly walk in that gray area between bullshit story and dry fact. So I do embellish my stories. I fill in the gaps in my memory. I highlight some things to point out the absurdity of them. And Mike was a fantastic storyteller too, and Mike had tons of stories. And one night, I went and was hanging out with Mike and a couple of our other friends, and we all got really stoned together. And everybody else went home, but I was really, really high and drunk by this time as well. And I was like, dude, can I just crash on your couch? He's like, yeah, my parents are gone, that's fine. So we're hanging out together, just me and Mike. And I go into his bathroom to drop a leak. And I'm pissing. And I look over at his wall, and his parents had hung up like the 10 Commandments, this little plaque with the 10 Commandments on it. And I was like, oh, that's funny. So I went back out, sat down with Mike on the couch, and I was like, dude, I was in there pissing. And I was reading your 10 Commandments. I never even noticed I was there, bro. It's like, yeah, man. It's awesome, isn't it? And he goes, so have you ever like actually looked at the 10 Commandments and asked yourself like how many of these you've broken? And I was like, no. I don't believe that I have. So he ran into the bathroom and pulled that little plaque down off the little nail it was hanging on and brought it into the living room, and he handed it to me and said, go through them. So I went through them, honor their father and mother. Yeah, I broke that one. Thou shalt not steal. I broke that one. Thou shalt hold no other gods before me. I don't know. I probably broke that one. Thou shalt not worship graven images. Probably. Thou shalt not kill. Nope. Haven't broken that one, at least to my knowledge. Etc. I went through the whole list. And then I handed it to him, and I was like, what about you, man? So he goes through it. And then and thinking back on it, it was so dramatic that I should have smelled bullshit. But I was a really gullible guy. I looked up to Mike in a big way. And on top of it, I was really stoned and drunk. Mike goes down the list, and then he gets to thou shalt not kill. And he gets real quiet. He gets real quiet. And I'm sitting there like, thou shalt not kill. So yeah, right. So not that one, right? And he goes, not exactly, Paul. And I'm like, what the fuck? You fucking killed somebody? And he goes, shh. Nobody around, but he shushed me anyway. Shut the fuck up. Look, I haven't told anybody this fucking story, and I'm trusting you a lot telling you this fucking story. I like you, Paul. But I'm going to tell you something that you cannot fucking tell anybody. Already, I'm at a point where I don't want to hear the fucking story. I'm like, I wanted to say, no, that's okay. It's cool. Just move on to like the graven images one. Now it's a lot more fun because I'm scared of you now. But he was so serious that I was like, okay, Mike. Yeah, I won't tell anybody. Whatever, dude. You can trust me. So he spins this yarn to me, one of many yarns that he had spun in the past about his past, his childhood, things that he'd said and done. But this one took the ever-loving taco. This was it. He goes, I grew up in Las Vegas. True. He had told me that before. I don't know if it was true, but true. Grew up in Las Vegas. And I had this girlfriend. Her name was Jennifer. And we were 14, 13 years old. This was right before I moved here to Madera. And we were madly in love. We loved each other very much. Anyway, one day, Jennifer was walking home. She'd come to my house to hang out. We weren't allowed to hang out at her house because her dad was an abusive drunk and didn't allow boys in the house. So she was hanging out over at my house, and we only lived 2 blocks away from each other, so she would walk home quite often. And I would walk her home usually. For whatever reason, that night I couldn't. I think my leg was acting up or something. So she walked home. And I never saw her again, man. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, really? How did we get here again? I didn't say that, but I'm thinking like, oh, fuck. He goes, I found out the next day that her body was found raped and beaten to death in an alleyway a block from her house, right in between where we live. And I'm going to tell you something, Paul. I knew right away who did it. It's like, what? There was this guy who lived in the same apartment building that she did that was always hitting on her. And he and his friends would drink in that alleyway, leaning up against one of the dumpsters, fucking real assholes. He was a few years older than her, 16, 17, I don't know. I knew it was him. I knew for an absolute fact that it was him that had done this to her. And as the days rolled by, the cops didn't have any leads. And I knew I had to fucking do something. I couldn't let this fucking guy get away with it. And I was like, please don't tell me this fucking story. He goes, so one day, I waited, watched him from the other end of the alley, waited till his friends took off. He slumped down, kind of drunk, lit up a cigarette, listening to his Discman or whatever. And that's when I walked over to him. And I pulled out this knife. And at this point, I shit you not, now Mike was known to carry weapons. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a switchblade, clicks it open, and he goes, I pulled out this fucking knife right here. And I walked up. He didn't even look up, man. Didn't even see me coming. And I said, hey. And as soon as he looked up, I grabbed him by the hair, and I stuck him right in the throat with this fucking knife, and I opened his fucking windpipe right up, and I left him there to die, gurgling like he drowned in his own fucking blood, man. And then a couple months later, we moved away, and I've never heard anything about it since. That's a fucking trip to lay on somebody. Stone cold sober. To lay it on somebody who's fucking drunk and high and gullible as shit and looks up to you. Mike and all this group of friends that I hung up with, they were both 2-3 years older than me. So by this time, they had already kind of graduated high school. They were college kids, you know. He lays this on me. And being who I am now, I probably would have been like, oh yeah, man, that sucks. I would have played it off and then I'd been like, bullshit. No, that never happened. I believed every fucking word of it. I had no reason to disbelieve Mike. I had no fucking reason. So I passed out that night, fucking barely got any sleep, went home the next day, and all day I'm thinking about, like, I'm a fucking, like, accessory after the fact. Like, there's unsolved murders in Las Vegas, and I'm one of, like, 2 people who knows the fucking answer. And what am I gonna do? What do I do? Like, I'm an accessory to murder. It freaked me out for like the rest of my friendship with Mike until one night. This was about a year later. I got a call from our other friend, Kevin. And Kevin called me and he said, hey, Paul, I wanted to talk to you about something. I said, sure. He said, did you hear that Mike's in the hospital again? And I had. Mike had told us all that he was having yet another surgery on his leg. The story that he told us about that was when he was little, his biological parents. Now, Mike had told us that the parents that he lived with now were adopted parents. His biological dad was a motorcycle guy. And he used to ride on the back of his dad's motorcycle when he was a little kid. And one day his dad got in a horrible accident and was killed. And Mike was thrown from the motorcycle and survived, but it mangled one of his legs. And so he's had multiple surgeries and pins and physical therapy. And he would hobble around on this leg and, like I said, walk around with a brace on and crutches sometimes, a cane sometimes. So he had told us that he was going in for another surgery on his leg, and that, we wouldn't hear from him for a couple of days. And we offered to go visit him, and he's like, no, dude, I don't like people visiting in the hospital. I hate being there. Just fucking see me when I get home. I'll be fine. If anything happens, you guys will find out, but it'll be fine. I've done this like 50 times. So Kevin calls me and he goes, I'm going to ask you a weird question. Have you ever felt that, like, Mike is not truthful with you? And I said, no. Like, Mike's always been open and honest with me. Why? And he goes, well, we just made a phone call to Mike's mom, and we wanted to make sure that he came through the surgery okay, but respect his wishes to not go visit him in the hospital. And asked his mom, how's Mike? Is he out of surgery yet? And she said, and I quote, what surgery? And we're headed over to her house to confront her about all the things that Mike has told us. Do you want to come? And I said, no, but please do let me know how it turns out. So Kevin and one of our other friends went to Mike's house. His car was not there. And asked his mom, can we come in? Sat down with his mom in the living room and started rattling off all these stories. It turns out that I was not the only person who had been told the story of Mike's murder spree, his revenge killing. And so they laid out every story that Mike had ever told, from the fact that he was adopted, the car accident, the leg that's had 50 surgeries, the girl that he was in love with that was raped and beaten and murdered to death, the person that he killed, all of these stories. And his mom was aghast, had no idea what we were talking about. And we straight up told her. He's been telling us this for years. We've known Mike for like 8 years. And he's been telling us this shit. We thought that Mike was no, Mike isn't adopted. What are you? We found out that everything that we knew about this guy, everything that he had ever told us, was a complete fabrication. And that's a weird feeling. It's fascinating to me on a level that there's a person out there, because I as a person who's told a lot of lies in his life, I realize what it feels like to live with that. And hey, Brian, are you hanging out for a minute? Sorry, guys. Are you hanging out for a minute? Yeah. I need your help answering a question here in a minute. In fact, anyway, that's the pathological liar that I know. His name is Mike, and he told me a bunch of lies. I'm going to ask the last question here before we move on, and I'm going to have my friend Brian come into the. I can't tell if you're on the thing here. Let me take a look here. Yeah, okay. This is my token black friend, Brian. He's the guy that I hold up like a shield when anybody makes allegations of racism to me. I'm like, but aha! I have a black friend, see? And I show pictures of he and I standing around together. Brian is also, now let me just confirm this with you. Brian, you watch my videos, correct?
Yes.
Not all of them, but you've watched most of my videos. You were also my first subscriber?
Yes.
My first subscriber. Now, you got to speak up here so they can hear you.
Number one.
Okay. I told Brian about my channel, and he was the first guy to subscribe to me. Mm-hmm. So here's the question. Paul, one thing I've noticed about your videos is that your mannerisms and the way that you talk and portray yourself makes it seem like you try too hard to impress your audience while making it seem as if you don't give a fuck. Be yourself, man. Now, I could answer this question myself and say, nuh-uh, I'm kind of the way I am on my, this is, what you see is what you get, but I figured I'd bring Brian in and let him answer the question. We've known each other how long?
Since freshman year.
Freshman 94. Year, so 16 years?
Roughly, 94, 17.
17 years, so that's over half our lives. Am I, or am I not, basically the person that I am in my videos?
Just kind of a loud asshole all the time. Kind of overbearing, always.
Keep going, please.
Especially when you're wrong. Or trying to prove that you're right. But the more wrong you get, the louder you get. That happens. But Paul's never wrong, so it doesn't really matter. Am I wrong? Do you have a point of contention there?
All right, get the fuck out of here. I'm done. I'm done with you. I mean, that should answer your fucking question. Get the fuck out of here. I'm dead serious. Get out.
Okay.
Don't you have like a 40 ounce of malt liquor to purchase or something?
No, I fucking do. I've got 800 milligrams of ibuprofen to take right now.
Nice. Ibuprofen. So anyway, that should answer your question, and that's a good place to wrap the video up. I hate to tell you this, but you're wrong. Especially in my more recent videos. My older videos, I was very reserved and trying to be somebody who I wasn't, but in every video that I've made in the last 2-3 years of my channel, this is me.
That's conflict mode.
Yeah, it's conflict mode, as Brian just said. That's who I am. So I hate to disappoint you. Anyway, I've got a couple of more questions. I will let you know via my channel page if I decide not to make another part to this, because I covered most of the ones that I wanted to cover, but possibly another answers video coming after this. And if not, I'll see you next time. If so, I'll see you next time. Peace.